Hi, Deb Brown here with Mike Penfold again. Now we're going to talk about landowners along the Bozeman Trail. So you've already shared with us about the Native Americans that came across the Great Bridge and went down. Is there a place you can start once, I guess I should say, white people started moving in?
Certainly, the real start place is on the North Platte River at Fort Laramie, and that's where the Oregon Trail goes through, and that's what the John Bozeman and those early wagoneers took off through Indian country to get to Virginia and Virginia City. So if there's a starting point, that is it. If you're an ancient Indian, you came down along the face of Glacier National Park 13,000 years ago, and you moved down there with your small band of people and hunters, and you were hunting mastodons, huge bison, wolves that were twice the size, short-faced bears, and animals that would scare the dickens out of us today. But these were successful people who came down and were the first immigrants to our country. Soon to be followed, not soon to be followed, years to be followed by new Indian tribes that formed after that. And then Lewis and Clark came through this same area along and then you had the trappers come in. And then you had those early fur traders who married many Indian wives and were successful at trapping these same countries. And then you had immigrants and gold finders and the Bozeman Trail, and then you had the iron rails that came along with the railroads, and the new people who founded farms and ranches, Indian people being pushed into reservations off of their homelands to a large extent, and now we are here today, enjoying the same countryside that for thousands of years people have enjoyed. Did I answer that question?
You did. I know that as we do work in promoting and talking about the Bozeman Trail, we're pretty adamant about making sure that tourists and visitors are not traveling on private landowners' land. Is there anything you'd like to share around that topic?
In Montana, most of the Bozeman Trail is on private land. And private landowners, when we did the wagon train, which I talked about in another segment, we got 99% cooperation with landowners to allow us to bring the wagon train over the Bozeman Trail. We only had one that said, well, that was Ted Turner's ranch. As much as
surprise.
At any rate, so that's kind of but landowners have been 100% cooperative. We're trying to get the Bozeman Trail designated as a National Historic Trail. And landowners are not expected to provide access. And as a matter of fact, the federal government is very specifically prohibited from acquiring land if it's a National Historic Trail for the trail to go on. National Historic Trail is not for walking on the trail. It is for preserving the history, identifying where it may cross public places and things like that. So we're really trying to be very clear to landowners. We're not looking to get on your land. We want you to manage your land the way you want to manage it. We want you to protect your land the way you want to protect it. We want you to be able to pass that land on to your ancestors the way you want to do that. This is not for government to interfere with that. You are a steward of a piece of historic property. We want you to appreciate what you've got on your land, but that's your job and your responsibility how you want to manage that land. So we're trying to be very clear to landowners about this. And it's important that they feel assured that that's what this is about.
Absolutely. And I know in the work that you've done in the wagon train and the few people that have allowed you to come and take pictures and do drone shots will only add to recording that history without having to go back on the land to do so. Give me one story of a spot along the Bozeman Trail that I'm never going to be able to go to.
Yes. My friend, the Indian friend Howard Bogus, introduced me to a chap by the name of Phil Beaumont. Phil Beaumont is a Indian chap. He's passed now. So this would have been probably not 20 years ago, maybe more than that. So we went to Phil's ranch, and Phil is a rancher. He raised Angus cattle and quarter horses. And Phil wanted to show us where the Bozeman Trail went on his ranch, which is on the Crow Reservation. So Phil jumped in my pickup, and we started off across his ranch, and he pointed out across the draw where the Bozeman Trail went. And interesting enough, as we traveled on the trail, we found more of these rock cairns. And Howard Bogus is the one who told me about the Indian Trail being marked with rock cairns. And as we explored the Bozeman Trail through Montana, we found often rock cairns.
Now, explain what that looks like, what a cairn looks like, because not everybody knows.
A pile of rocks, sometimes a foot high, sometimes 2 feet high, sometimes 3 feet high. Sitting along a place where it was logical for the trail to go, and often in places where you needed to put a marker that says, here's where the trail is. And what the Indian people did is they would travel, even before horses, they would walk along, and they'd spit on a rock and they'd throw it in a pile. They'd pick it up and throw it in a pile. They're walking along. And that meant for them, according to Indian tradition, good luck on the trail and safe travel. And of course, they were marking further ways for people to follow later on. And in snowstorms, when you can't see very much, those rock cairns could stand up and you could see where you were going. So Phil Beaumont was taking us along this trail, and we went. His ranch is between Pryor and Edgar, so he was taking us through that country there. The rock cairns occasionally. And we got over the ridge and down the other side. There was a huge Indian village there at one time. You could see the Indian teepee rings all over. So I felt really comfortable that we were looking at a location. If it wasn't the Bozeman Trail, it certainly was an Indian trail. We met Phil, and of course he was very gracious about showing this stuff on his ranch and allowing us to be on his ranch at his permission. That's appropriate. Howard and I were up on Pryor's, probably 5 years later, and there was a kind of an old pickup sitting out on the point where you could overlook this huge viewscape from the Pryors. And we walked up to the pickup, and Phil Beaumont was in there. This is probably 5 years after we met him. And so we talked with him, and he said, I'll show you my Vision Quest site. So Phil is 80 something now, then.
He's still with us?
No.
Oh, he's deceased now.
No, he died in 2006.
Okay.
So this was probably 2005. But he was up there sitting quietly, probably thinking, I don't know, what is he thinking about? Anyway, so yeah, we'd like to see your Vision Quest site. So we walked down through these kind of cliffy places down to these rock ledges. And here was a kind of a little bit of an overhang and a little bit of a rock wall kind of put up, and just a big enough place for Phil to lay down as a young man. Here's his story. He said after World War II, and he was with the Air Force in World War II and had volunteered for a number of assignments in Italy and Europe and God knows where. So he was highly respected then, and he came back, and what am I going to do with my life now? So he went up for a Vision Quest site, and he laid down into this Vision Quest site without food or water, and he said he was there for 3 days. And his vision was about water, and like you can imagine being without water, your vision would be about, but also that God told him, the spirits told him that he needed to pay attention to water, and he needed to find religion. When he woke up from his vision quest, here was a large vessel of water that he didn't know where it came from. So he saw that as very spiritual. He became a preacher. He had a doctor's degree. He taught. He did all kinds of marvelous educational work. He was quite a respectable man. And I think he died about a year later after we had that. And it was kind of an honor to do that. But that's one person that you found on the Bozeman Trail. We had another rancher. He took us out. Nelson Story, who brought the first big cattle herd into Montana, kept his cattle on the Bozeman Trail up above the Yellowstone River. The rancher took us up there and he was an older guy, and I wish the heck I'd recorded it at the time. So he's telling these stories. He said, see that ridge up there? He said, now on that side of the ridge was the sheep herder, was the sheep people, and on this side of the ridge was my dad's cattle people. And that sheep herder just wouldn't listen to my dad, So my dad finally shot him in the leg. It improved his hearing very well. We missed not recording some of these people that were so kind to show us various things on the Bozeman Trail. Many didn't realize that Bozeman Trail is on their land either, so occasionally we could show them something, which was good.
Thank you, Mike.